Well, Steve, Innocente Brewing Company, welcome to Beers with Bill. And
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to come back again.
yeah. Well, it's been 8 months, hasn't it?
It's been that long.
It's been that long. I was surprised. I looked it up just before the show.
Yeah, because I remember I was sitting out on my front porch
Mm-hmm.
in a lovely evening. Probably very dark for everyone to see me.
Yep.
Yeah, just 8 months has just flown by.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said we're going to start with the Cranky Zestive, right?
Yeah. Again, thanks for having me. I thought we'd do a bit of a theme. So this is my take on UK style, well, UK and Ireland style beers. Most of you probably know I spent a decade in Scotland, so I was able to sample more British beers than most people get a chance to do in their lifetime. And to be honest, I actually never liked them. I was always an IPA guy. So the first one here is what we call Cranky Zestive, and this is kind of a bit of a Christmas beer, although we don't necessarily do it for Christmas. I personally hate Christmas, and I hate Christmas beers. This is very much an un-Christmas beer. The name Cranky Zestive came from a text autocorrect. When I was trying to send cranberry orange ESB, and it auto-corrected the Cranky Zestive. Like, there's our name right there. I have no idea how that ever happened, but ESBs for me are, I always find them very difficult to make. And I don't know if any of you guys brew also, but it's just about that perfect balance of hops, bitterness, and the malt. And you can go overboard either way. Or one of three ways, and so I actually think I'm pretty lucky with this one, and it stayed pretty true to style. And then for this one, we just add into the end of the boil some sweet orange peel, and we learned from the last time we did it to put it in a bag because we had to take apart the heat exchanger after we brewed last time because it got through everything. And then there's a little bit of cranberry puree put in during fermentation. But to be honest, cranberry is one of those hard flavors to actually get into a beer because the yeast soak it all up. The yeast are like bright red when they come out of the tank, so they don't tend to impart a lot of flavor. So it's just really some back end hints. Unfortunately, I have a beer on the go, so I'm going to down this quickly, and then we can delve in. I'm not very good at speed drinking.
I understand.
So the color should be sort of a nice, kind of a light red-ish tinge to it. The nose, like you get the malts. There's some English crystal in there, just a little bit of wheat. Sorry, it's the animals behind me. A little bit of wheat to help with head retention, and mainly Canadian two-row malt because we have the best malt on the planet. Why would I use anything else? So it's got a nice balanced note. The hops are Mount Hood, which is just sort of for me like a workhorse hop that I use for almost anything and everything. Actually, I think all of these beers here tonight, they're all Mount Hood. You can use it for flavor, you can use it for bittering. It's just there, or it can not be there. I kind of like stuff like that from time to time. Give me one. I'm gonna dump this out, and then we can get on to the beer.
Okay.
There we go, folks. Sorry about that. Cranky Zestive. If there's any questions, just ask. Comments.
Yeah, well,
Tell me to fuck off. Go do that too.
they'll throw them in the chat bar. And
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'll keep an eye on that for you. I'm curious. You said you hate Christmas. How come?
Because you have to get together with family, travel, give up my time. I mean, I never got, especially when I was a graduate student. I mean, you'd work 7 days a week, and you would only get the holidays off. I don't want to travel all over the place to family. I just want to stay at home and do nothing. This is the only time I can, because most places are actually like most labs would be actually closed, and you would be barred from. So it's kind of a forced 2-week break, and I don't want to spend that with arguing extended family members and in-laws and stuff like that. I'm probably not the only one.
I can appreciate that aspect of it. Yes.
But I love it with my own family.
Yeah.
So just add a sip. You can definitely get the sweetness from the malt. You can get that sort of back end bitterness from the orange peel. And to be honest, I don't think it matters if you use bitter or sweet orange peel. I think it really tastes just about the same. You can also get that sort of tartness from the cranberry, just sort of right at the back sides of your tongue. You don't really necessarily get cranberry flavor per se, but it is a nice sort of rich. Looks like a proper pint in a pub anywhere.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, how many pounds of orange peel would you have put in that?
Thinking off the top, I don't have my recipes on this laptop. I think it's 5 kilos.
Okay.
So we put it in like right at the end of the boil. So it's in for the whirlpool and the rest.
Yeah.
And again, last year we just did a half batch and we put it in, and I didn't put it in the bag, thinking the strainer upstream of the heat exchanger would stop it, but the pressure backed up so much that it actually ruptured the strainer, and then it got all through the heat. And
that must have been fun.
Oh, there's 113 plates to take out, and it wasn't fun. Yeah, I just saw that pop up. What do I use to do my recipes? Yeah, I've been using Beersmith for probably close to 20 years. I prefer the older versions, to be honest, and it's a really clever piece of software. It's well worth the money. And I mean, I think I'm technically breaking the rules by using it as a professional now, but I just have everything in there. And like if you sit down, you go over your like what your brew house is, and you can enter in all the specs, and you can figure out just about anything and everything right down to the T. And it takes maybe a day to figure out what. So if I have 3,200 liters of water in there, what's my boil off rate? Well, but it's going to be handy in the future. So like I've got everything dialed in for my specific brew house, and then it really helps you to fine tune future recipes. And we don't even tend to do anything on the pilot kit anymore. We'll just run straight on the big system.
So how many liters is the big system?
It is technically 25 barrels, which is 2,750 liters. We'll push kettle full 3,250 with a goal of roughly getting 2,700 liters out of it. Be 2,800. We just learned how to maximize everything out now, anything past 2,800, it's just gonna it's just gonna spill out of the FV and make a mess. So you just wasted time.
I hear you.
I did see a question pop up there.
Yeah, that was the question. He was curious as to what size of a batch.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, they pop up quickly and I can't necessarily see them. Yeah. So what do you guys think? This is 4.8%. Which is a little bit high for an ESB technically. ESB stands for extra special bitter. They would typically be a little bit higher in alcohol, somewhere around 4.2, 4.5, maybe 4.6 at a push. To be honest, when you're selling beer in Britain, and that's how I started, it's actually really hard to sell any beer that's over 4% in alcohol. They just won't take it. So you learn how to make stuff taste good at 4%. Like it's quite easy to make a double IPA at 8.5% and have it nicely balanced and not thin and stuff like that. But to make a beer at 4% taste the same, so that's a little more difficult. But it's just, if I can't sell an 8% beer, then there's no point making it. Well, the here's great though. Like we did our triple IPA, and that was like people just loved it at 10.7. So I really got to throw caution to the wind and just go for it. Yes, there was one that somebody said they were struggling with gravities. Who was that? Yeah. Oh God, it happens all the time. Do you mill your own malt? You just shake your head, or
I was gonna say, am I allowed to come off mute?
oh, I've heard your voice now. Bad joke. Yeah, milling's a big thing. Like, do you mill your own?
No, I have a source that has an electronic miller,
Mm-hmm.
and they dial it in to my specification for me.
And are you using like a bag, malt, mash in a bag, or like a mash tun?
I'm actually using a Brewzilla.
Brewzilla. That's the all-in-one thing, right? There's a number of different ones. I don't have a lot of experience with them. But what volume are you typically going to?
Typically, I'm doing 5-gallon batches.
So 20 liters or so.
Yeah, it starts out roughly around 27, 28 liter. And then of course with your grain absorption and boil off and everything else like that. Typically, I run a 30-liter brew day by the time all water is calculated and said and done. I usually keep good notes in Beer Smith.
Mm-hmm.
I try to make sure that I nail my gravities, but I think where I kind of run into the issue of getting consistency is as I'm mashing, let's say it's a 60-minute mash, I will take, after about 45 minutes, a sample, a small sample, cool it, put it on the refractometer,
Mm-hmm.
and check it. And a lot of times, the gravity will be quite high. I'll be like, okay, well, I think I'm running into what I need to be. And then if I pull at the 60-minute and sparge, a lot of times I'll end up with, or I was ending up with, gravities that were way lower than what I needed to be.
How much?
I would say, if I was brewing, well, let's pick on an IPA. Let's say I was brewing a double IPA and I was looking for a specific gravity of like, I don't know, 1071 or something like that. I would walk away with like 1066 or 1067 or something like that. Like, and in the end, I'm losing about 1%, 1.5%, almost 2% sometimes, depending on the recipe, especially when I was struggling in the beginning. So what I started doing was adding time to my mash, and I'm up to usually about 30 minutes. So the 60-minute mash, I'm an hour and a half.
Mhm.
And then now I've started actually slightly going over, but I didn't know. So I guess to circle back on my original question, it's kind of like, how do you know midway through your mashing that, hey, I'm on schedule, or, oh, shoot, I'm going to need to add, 15 minutes because my grain isn't, releasing its sugars, or I need to stick in the beta stage a little longer before shifting to alpha and then mashing out, or
Yeah, I don't I just do a single step. Well, actually, I guess technically I do a two-step mash, like a single step with a mash off. I don't check anything. I've never had a lot of confidence in any starch conversion assays, even from back my time in the lab. Um,
so you don't do like protein rests or
I don't do no. It like malt's so highly modified now, it's not really required. Um, it's like, and especially if you're using Canadian two-row barley, it's the best on the freaking planet, bar
yeah,
none.
mostly Canadian two row.
Yeah,
Um,
um,
with Cara,
like
Mare's Otter or Cara
something else
pills.
or whatever. Yeah, you checking your pH? Are you adjusting your
To
water?
be honest, that is the one thing I just started on my last one.
Mhm.
I'm running like plain water. I guess you could say I'm running up into the upper sixes of my pH.
Mhm.
And then I took a sample of my mash last time, and
Mhm.
and about halfway through my mash, I checked the pH level, and I was 5.4, 5.5, I think it
That's
was.
that's that's good. Have you calibrated your thermometers?
Uh, yes,
Okay.
because
Um,
I have a thermopen that I use.
mhm. I mean that sounds all right. And like we sometimes go through times when I'm actually like ahead in extraction. And then, for some inexplicable reason, two batches later, I'm like, oh fuck, I missed my gravity. Um, I honestly don't worry about it so much. I mean, if the beer's on the label at 5.7, I'm allowed 0.5%. Um, either way. I found one of the big things for me and in my system, and this is very specific to my system, is the crush in the mill is absolutely critical. There's nothing that affects my day more than if that mill dials in or is not dialed in. And a lot of times, as the mill is shaking when you're milling it, the sort of roller set screw starts to squeeze in a little bit tighter, and you get a finer crush. And then, like a lauder, you add 3-4 hours onto your brew day because, oh crap, stuck mash, oh, undergo, it's just endless. So we just came through a cycle of that, and it was like 3 shitty mashes in a row. Actually, they're right here: Irish Red, in Innocente, and the Charcoal Porter. I'm like, okay, something's not right. So took the whole mill apart and checked the gap, and sure enough, it was off. It was off by 1/10 of a millimeter. 1/10 of a millimeter absolutely ruined brewing for
So
me for
how
3 months.
how do you set your milling? Like what's your
So
rule of thumb?
I've got some sieves. So there's a very specific assay for it. So I've got some sieves. So you run your malt through the sieves, and you're supposed to mark out I believe it's a 30-inch. Put two tape marks 30 inches apart, and you have the set of sieves. And I've got 5 of them, but typically you would run with 4. You put your malt in the top, and you shake back and forth between those lines, um, and every 5 shakes, you tap and go, and you tap, and you do that for 3 minutes, and then you weigh. So you weigh the malt that you put in, and then you weigh what's in each tray, and you should have a percentage. And like my screens are really shitty in my mash tun. I need a percentage of larger crushed particles. So basically, all I want to do is crack that husk, and that's it. That's how my mash tun works. I mean, for you, if you're missing it by a little bit, why not try adding a little bit extra malt if you can. I don't like using enzyme. I mean, like when I did the hand sanitizer, we used enzyme. I don't find it's that great. I've never used it in a beer. I wouldn't. And I mean, the last thing is, what's your mash temperature typically?
Well, I mean, depends on what step I'm running. Typically, I don't know, about 64 degrees Celsius.
So that's quite low. So that'll give you a nice, clean, dry, lots of easily fermentable sugars.
Yeah, like if I'm staying, if I'm running, say, a standard IPA again, yeah, I'll mash at 60 minutes at 64 degrees Celsius, and then I'll ramp it up to about 68 to 71 over 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
Just to close it off.
For me, for something like Conscience, it's 66.9 degrees Celsius. My Pilsner is usually 64.5 degrees Celsius. The Porter would be 68-ish. Same with the Irish Red and the Innocente. So they're actually no, the Innocente was more the Pilsner at 60, 64, 65. I mean, like you're like wheelhouse. I would just say, you got to figure out the system, and maybe 300 grams extra malt, like fix it.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry for all the brewing stuff.
It is beers with Bill.
What's that? Sorry?
I said it is beers with Bill. You can't have beer without brewing. So.
Yes,
So
it is true.
It's really interesting hearing about like the levels of precision, right? Like 66.9 Celsius, right?
Well, and I mean it's true, and like my mash pH might be 6.42, and when you're dealing with, let's say, for something like Conscience, it could be 625 kilograms of malt and maybe 15 to 1600 liters of water, and to hit it at the right time is it's not even, it's just intuition now. I've probably done, and it's something I've been wanting to calculate for a while. How many beers have I done? How many brews have I done on my system? And I think I'm probably easily over 500, maybe over 600. And it's just, you just get a feel for it, and it's weird. And like if I have like junior staff, to do it for me, and they're all like panicked and sitting there, I'm like, oh, just relax, just wait, give it 30 seconds. Okay, now cool it off a bit. Oh, there we go. Yeah. I mean, you're much easier mashing in hotter than you are cooler, because it's easier to cool down than it is to warm up. But yeah, it's pretty important in terms of what you want the beer to taste like. And the difference between making something like a Pilsner and making something like a stout is only 4.5 degrees Celsius. Like that, like in terms of mouthfeel and body, like when you're dealing with, that much volume in an entire batch of beer, you can really screw it up quickly. So you do tend to keep an eye on it. But sometimes stuff doesn't work, and you've screwed it up. So the professionals can fix it. That's always been my motto. The professionals can fix it. Like I don't know if you guys remember, years ago we did beer called Work Avoidance. It was like a 3.5% session IPA. It was a total cock up. brewing day. Total cock up. It was actually bystander, which was my pale ale that I don't do anymore. And like the brew day had gone swimmingly, and I forgot a valve open. And when we were doing the pool, it drew 600 liters from the hot liquor tank into the kettle at the end of the boil, basically diluting it. I'm like, well, shit. There's like nothing. There was nothing we could do. So we just sent it out to the tank, and we'll have to figure it out. We'll have to call it another beer. And it was easily our fastest selling beer ever. And then I had to replicate it twice more that summer, but I had to figure out exactly how I screwed up and how badly I screwed up in order to replicate it. And so that was like, okay, working back from the notes, and this is where you hope you keep really good notes, because you can work back and say, aha, this is what happened. So we did it, but we all screw up. I mean, I dumped batches. Thankfully, it's not that often, but it can happen. Sometimes stuff just doesn't work. We were doing a batch for the Pilsner a while ago. I think it was just before Christmas, or maybe just after Christmas. And it just the number of cock ups of this beer was just astronomical. So I'd started to do the transfer into the kettle, and I forgot I left the top draw valve open. And I went off and I was doing some paperwork in the office, and it had been transferring for, I don't know, about an hour and a half. And then my right-hand man, Adam, comes in, and he's just like white. He's like, I've got some bad news. I'm like, what? You left a valve open. I'm like, fuck. So we run over to the kettle, and he's got his little hand flashlight, and he looks in, and he's trying to get out of the way so I can look in, and then his hand hits the side, and the flashlight falls in. It's like, oh shit. So not only have I lost half the batch, but we have a flashlight in there. So we ended up saving half a batch. We put it in the tank anyway. We fished the flashlight out. The flashlight never opened, so there was no battery leakage anywhere. The batteries are still intact. So okay, well, the flashlight got boiled for 90 minutes anyway, so it should be all right. And then when we went to package that beer, on the bottom of the tank, our tanks are cones, and then there's a racking arm. I don't know how much you can see of me here, because my I can't. So racking arm goes up into the tank, and you can rotate it to draw off just before where you get like clear, clean beer, so you don't pick up any yeast. So we're rotating the racking arm around, and it cracked, and we were fucked. And beer pissing everywhere. I can't do anything about it. We had to get a tank ready in the next, thankfully had a clean tank. We just had to sanitize it, purge it, and send the beer over. So it actually worked out well that we only got half of what the original beer was going to be, because we were able to save all that. Use some duct tape and electrical tape to seal everything up, because nothing was working. And then we packaged as much as we could after we moved stuff over to the one tank, which we filled that one up because it was my double size 5,000 liter tank. And we packaged everything all day as quickly as we could, and we were able to save everything. But sometimes shit happens, and it's like, what the heck? Three massive things going wrong with one stupid beer. But we got it sorted in the end, and it ended up being a pretty decent batch. Actually, there's a little hint of battery acid. It's good for you. Puts hair in your back, like me. Anyway, we probably need to get to another beer, don't we? All right. That's about the Irish Red, which I think this is the most clever beer name in brewing, to be honest. Innocente. Like, that's pretty good. When I started the brewery in Edinburgh, in the UK, I was known as like the guy that would do off the rails IPAs, as bitter and as hoppy as I could possibly make them at any one time. Anytime I had a beer for sale in Britain, it was the hoppiest beer for sale, period. And when I came back here, and like they were all critically acclaimed, people loved them. And when I came back here, no one got them. Like, shit. So I gave myself 6 months. If people didn't clue in within 6 months, or people did not clue in, but if people didn't like it in 6 months, I had to do something else. So I thought, well, let's try making an Irish red. And I did that. And the Irish red, or the Innocente, has been a #1 selling beer, period. It's probably, well, we'll be doing the 65th batch next week. And the next closest one is in the low 50s. So it's well and above our popular beer. And it's one that it's sort of loosely based off of a kind of like a mixture of a Kilkenny and a couple other like a 60-70 shilling Scottish ale. Our water works really well for it in Kitchener-Waterloo because it's so hard. Or I should say there's so much calcium. Irish water is actually quite soft, but it's massively unbalanced in terms of calcium. So we were all right in the fact that we could use our water, and we did it, and it was pretty much an instant hit. Just sort of notes of toffee, a little bit of coffee, caramel, and it is like it's quite dark for a red, but if the light hits it, it has just a beautiful amber hue. It's sort of a deep ruby red, and it's, again, as I said, it's easily our best seller. I don't actually drink that much of it, to be honest, and anytime I take it home, I'll take the Irish red home tonight. I'm like, I really like this. It's just a simple, good little beer. Like, it doesn't ask anything of you. It doesn't demand your attention. It just wants you to drink it. Just wants you to sit down and have 6 of it. Who else wants to have 6 of something? I'd like to have 6 beers. Notes of taste, like coffee, or just a hint of coffee, a little bit of roasty, and some nice like caramel and like toffee notes in there. Simple, clean little beer. It's not sweet. I don't like sweet. I don't like dessert. Give me a cheese plate. All of my beers are always quite dry. And as are most, you travel Europe, like with the exception of France, which they really like sweet beers, and it's weird. German beers are dry. English, Scottish, Irish beers are always dry because you get to the end of the pint and you get that, well, I'm gonna have another one. Whereas sweet doesn't do that. It's the way of selling stuff. So it's longer. Bill, I can't hear you. Is it me or is it you guys?
No, it's me. Is that better?
Okay. Yeah.
Derek's surprised that the Irish red outsells your IPAs.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
You're the only brewer that I've heard that from. Everyone else, just as soon as they put an IPA up there, it just goes off the shelf. So
I don't like the IPAs that people like, so I don't make them. I can't stand a
There you go.
New
Okay,
England
that's-
style IPA. I can't stand it. I want bitter. Give me an old school IPA. I mean, I
all
like
for the-
like I've done ones with like a 2-night stand. We'll make it a little more fruity, fruit salad with triple IPA. Again, is juicy, fruity, sweet, but it's not cloudy. I don't like those cloudy IPAs. And to be honest, like it's like instant gout flare up for me if I have one of those things. I mean, I'm on anti-gout medication now, which is amazing. but it's just my body doesn't like it. So I don't do it, and I get a lot of people saying, "Oh, you need to do this." Nah, I do what I want.
But that's always
Guilty conscience, yeah. Yeah, that's an old school double IPA, and some people love it, and a lot don't. So I don't do it that often anymore. It's a big double IPA with all the bitterness that should go into it. I don't know. I just always like that. I like the bitterness. I like the hoppiness. Like clean, crisp, dry, and clear. I mean, you try selling a cloudy beer in the UK. Jesus Christ, that's not going to happen. They won't even talk to you. I mean, it's probably changed now, but back when I was doing it, 2012, 2013, if your beer's not crystal clear, they'll send that cask back, and you're not going to get a sale there again. The good old camera rules, the campaign for real ale, which they're great people, great people. I remember years ago, I was still in Edinburgh. My wife, my oldest daughter, who worked at the brewery over the summer, she's going to turn 19 next month. She was traveling back to Canada to spend the summer with my parents, and so we just arrived at the airport, and we're all first time the kids left the house, and we're all quite sad. But I was going to the Scottish Real Ale Festival, which was at the corn market in Edinburgh that year, and so we got there. It was about half hour before they opened, and there was a lineup of, as my wife put it, this is the saddest fucking thing I've ever seen. A bunch of middle-aged, fat, bald, old men lining up in the rain, waiting to get into a place to drink beer. I'm like, these are my people. These are my people. So yeah, had a great time. Don't remember much of it, but camera, good things and bad things. But anytime you travel around the UK and you see they'll have a little hand pull sign on every door. It says "Real Ale served here." You're getting a good pint. And if they take care of their draft line, or sorry, their cask lines, and their pints are tip top, their kitchen's going to be impeccable too. Those two things always go together for me. So your top traveling tip. Any questions, comments?
So Dale
concerns?
threw one in about wondering if you blended yeast to create different purpose off flavors.
Well, that's a really good point. I see that one. I'll get to that one in a second. I've underpitched to get more esters produced. That was when I was mainly home brewing, because I didn't have temperature control. In terms of blending yeast, we've done it inadvertently. When we pitched, somebody's grabbed 3 bricks of yeast and one's been a lager strain. We can't tell the difference. So homebrew side, when you don't have temperature control, you can underpitch to increase the fruity esters made to make like a fruity IPA even fruitier. For me, if I have temperature control, since I have temperature control, I'll just raise the temperature up to like my IPAs, I'll ferment at 23 degrees. Everything else at 20 or 21, and lagers at 14 to 16, depending on how well it's styled in. And I saw the last drop in the sheepseed. Who did that? Yeah. For me, and I like the sheepseed was great with the Skittles on the back, and we would go for a walk around the seat, and always stop in the sheepseed for plate of chips and a couple pints. And I actually sold beer there too. They were really nice people. For me, it is Cloisters, the Bull Bar, and the Stockbridge Tap were my big three. Stockbridge Tap is the one that stands out because Archie was the cellarman there at the time, and like I would, and it was strange. Like I remember my first batch of Bystander, I sold 32 casks all over pubs in Edinburgh, and anytime they tapped them, you know, it'd be on social media, and I would go out with all my mates and we try it, and it tasted different in every single pub. And you know, some were good, some were okay. This is exactly what I want. Some were awful, and then I went to the Stockbridge Tap. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what did you do to this beer? And he's like, Oh my God, I'm so what? You made it better than I even thought possible. It was just glorious. It was like those of you that have like Bystander Fresh, if you have it immediately fresh, you get like a dried strawberry note that just hits you in the middle of the palate. It was like passion fruit, you know, grapefruit, and then this huge dried note. And he somehow brought that out front. He just gave a shit. He was good at what he did, and it was just so different. So he was such a good guy, and we're actually still in contact. I'm actually still in contact with all of them. And we chat quite often. And just to, you know, just to see how they're doing, and you know, they're like the Bull Bar was one that I spent a lot of time in, and I love that place. Absolutely love that place. They had a little pork shop across the street. You could get like pork shoulder on a bun, and they'd ask you, do you want extra crackling? Yes, I want extra crackling. So good, so good. Your jaws were sore. You know, the crackling, but so good. Yeah. God, I miss Edinburgh.
I can see that just in your passion and you talk about it. Innocente.
Yes.
Remy's
This was
label.
really just. Sorry, Bill.
I said Remy's label.
Remy's label. None of you have met Remy before, of course. Just kidding. This was a beer that was kind of like, you know, those Friday night regulars in to the brewery, and we're, you know, half in the bag and chatting. Oh, do a Guinness clone. Yeah, what do we call it? It's all sorts. I said, let's call it Innocente. And they're like, yeah, okay. So we did it. And first year was just a pilot batch. It was 125 liters, and we did it under nitro, and it was delicious. Actually, like I from memory, I copied it fairly well. And then the second year, which was last year, and this was at the start of all this COVID stuff, we did a half batch, and it like sold out like sold really well. So this year we did a full batch, and I really get a lot of positive feedback on it. A lot of people like this. You know, this is as good as or better than Guinness, and it's really just a piss take, to be honest. You know, the label doesn't look anything like Guinness's cans. Unfortunately, I'm not able to get in any widget cans with like the little nitro widget in it. That would probably cost me $16,000 to $20,000 in canning line upgrades in order to use them. So it's like, okay, well, we'll just keep it under CO2. But at the bar, we do put it through a stout tap, and you can get a nice cascade to it. And I'm such an adult that I draw a penis on every top of them, or on the top of every one in the foam, because I can. Oh, that's an interesting shamrock. It's not a shamrock. Yeah, it's a really lucky one. So yeah, I've got a son that's 11, and we're about the same mental age, to be honest. It's really sad. My wife has 5 children. Okay, be right back. Gotcha. So do you want to tap that one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. let me get rid of this, and I'll be back. Alrighty. So Innocente didn't copy the label at all.
For the record, that looks a lot like a Guinness.
No, it
No, no, no,
doesn't.
no, no, no.
What are you
the-
from, Diageo? Yeah, I was hoping to get a cease and desist letter, but I've not yet.
Can you hold that up one more time? I unfortunately don't have it in front of me, but that looks awesome.
Okay, hang on a sec.
Yeah.
There we go. It looks pretty close, doesn't it? You can see
Nailed
the
it.
hops. Yeah. Yeah, he knocked it out of the park, didn't he? Yeah, he's such a good guy too. So this is my take on Guinness, and I always love the oh, Guinness always tastes better in Ireland. Oh, the Guinness in Ireland is so much better than anywhere else. No, Diageo knows what every molecule in that fucking beer is doing at any given time. The actual global Guinness brewery that has the closest recipe or the closest product to the original Guinness is in South Africa. But we're talking nobody could ever tell the difference. The reason why it tastes better when you're in Dublin is because it's served at the right temperature. So it'll you know, and like you walk into a pub in Dublin, you say, "Give us a pint." There'd be a glass filled on the back of the bar. They'll grab that. It's coming out of a cellar about 12, 13 degrees Celsius. They'll grab that and they'll top it up. So it's that beer is now probably at 18, 19 degrees Celsius. They'll top it up with a third of it and they'll drop it down to 14, 15, 16, probably 15 or 16 degrees Celsius. That's when all those middle flavors come out of it. Guinness is still actually a lovely little pint. I can't stand that export stuff that goes to like the islands in the Caribbean. Like that stuff is just awful. But the actual proper Guinness is still a nice pint. And like this one is just my take on it. It's I mean, you smell it. It on the nose is probably actually a little bit sweeter than Guinness. It's really just sort of simple roast. I just get roast and a little bit of like, caramel. The malt character is there's a lot of oats in it. Give it that sort of nice creamy head protein. Some roast barley and some Canadian two row malt, and that's it. There's really not much to it. Taste.
Cheers.
Roasty. A little bit of dark chocolate, like really dark chocolate, like that 80 and above dark chocolate. It's just simple and it's there. That sort of roasty bitterness lingers on the back of the palate and sort of makes you want to have another pint to refresh it. This particular batch is a little bit higher in alcohol because this was in the middle of my mash tun having a mind, my mill having a mind of its own, so it crushed the malt a little bit more than needed to be, so I did get more extraction out of it. But it lacks the lacto or the lactic acid tartness that Guinness has. Because when Guinness, stainless steel was invented in Britain in the um, Stainless steel was invented in Britain in 1953, I believe. So probably by mid to late 50s, a lot of the major breweries would have switched over to stainless steel, leaving behind either their oak or carbon steel tanks, which were very hard to clean. So when Guinness did this, their tanks were actually infected. Every single tank they had was actually infected. And that's what gave it that characteristic lactic or tart note. And when they switched to stainless, because they could sanitize them properly, they weren't getting that. And people didn't like it. So they had to figure out, why the hell are we not having this note? And they finally figured it out that, because our actual tanks were chronically infected. And that was part of the entire character. And so they still, to this day, they put some of the wort into the old tanks and then blend a little bit of that in. And I mean, like, you can do it at home too, with just adding a little bit of lactic acid, and you can get that actual sort of the lactic note in which I actually don't like. So I don't. But it's a pretty interesting story. I mean, like, if you're ever in Dublin, it's kind of like Disneyland, but it's worth going to the St. James Gate Brewery. It's I mean, now it is actually like Disneyland, but it still is quite the show. And they have the lovely rotunda at the top, and there's lots of people from Southeast Asia that take the tour, and they don't drink their pints, so you can get schmammed for nothing. Another traveling top tip, full of them today. How to travel around Europe without paying anything for alcohol, or to find the best place to buy the alcohol. But yeah, I actually really like this beer. It's just it's there. It's not complicated. It's not demanding any attention. It is relatively one-noted, like roast, and that's about it. Thanks. I actually really quite like it. And my wife's a huge Guinness fan, and she really loves it too. It's great to cook with. I did made some homemade corned beef. So I actually brined the beef, and then for Paddy's Day, which we celebrated this weekend, I raised it in the oven with a couple cans of Innocente, and it's just beautiful. With some Savoy cabbage. Much rather finish off Guinness pints. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
like
over wine and cheese, not over against Innocente.
Yeah. Free ones, right? Excellent. It's just a nice pint. And a lot of times there's not enough of that around. Just a pint. Just want to go for a pint. I don't want anything tagged along with it.
I wish I'd known about the little design at the top. I would have had you pour me one today when I stopped in.
But I am sort of one arm today, so it wouldn't have worked very well. I don't have any range of motion to do it. I was trying to get one with an action shot, but that didn't work out very well because I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Would have been a floppy clover. Yeah, that's mine for sure.
Dale had a question earlier, and I'm going to ask this because I'm curious too. If you had a single day where you could work and learn from another brewer, who would it be?
That's a good one. I've only met one So there's some technical terms in brewing, just like there is a lot of things. A plumber. You can have a journeyman plumber. You can have a plumber. You can have a master plumber. They're very different things. In brewing, I call myself a head brewer, meaning that I would develop the recipes and most likely in any larger brewing facilities, I would have a brewer or a production brewer carry out my recipes. To me, it's a technical designation, a master brewer, and that is in the brewing industry a technical designation, and you take a test to do it. And I forget which it's one of the institutes in Germany that holds it, and they'll basically like you start up a mash and you leave, and then they will sabotage it somehow, and you have to figure out and fix it, among a whole bunch of other exams. And the only person I met that was an actual master brewer, not a brewmaster, a master brewer, was Steve Stewart from Stewart Brewing outside of Edinburgh. He was the only certified master brewer I've ever come in contact with. It'd be great just to fuck around with him for a while. And I mean, like we always did, like I used to buy him quite a bit. And then when I turned part-time pro, we used to chat a bit, but we actually never did a brew day together. Probably be pretty neat to see what he knows. I mean, the closest person in the province of Ontario, I would say, to something like that would be maybe Charles McLean, someone that's been around so long and just knows more than is actually forgotten more than most people know, including me. I mean, I've got my specific skill set. There's a lot of things I don't do well or don't necessarily care about, because everything else that I have covers that. But yeah, I mean that's a really good question.
I think too, my question on that was not only, yeah, like is it somebody that you could learn from, but we all have those breweries that even if you make your own, you taste it and you're like, every beer that they keep putting out, you're like, damn, I just want to crawl in this guy's head. How does he come up with this stuff? And that's kind of what I was thinking of that question.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and for me, let's call the province of Ontario. You remember back, Bill, you might know this, Sergeant Major's IPA. There's also corporal punishment. Was it Perry at Scotch Irish Brewing? That he was the man that transformed me. And I met him once at the Winking Judge in Hamilton because I was doing my PhD down at Mac, and I was fucking hammered, so it really wasn't much of a meeting. It was just some stupid, drunk, annoying guy that liked him. But man, that Sergeant Major's IPA was always one of my favorites. Total favorite. That's a guy like that. That's stuff I'd like to see come back. A proper IPA. It's big, bitter, unabashed. Take it or leave it. And then I think he sold out. And I forget who bought it, but it sort of wasn't very good after that. But yeah, he would be someone that, I mean, just by his beers made me really change the way I think and behave. Will definitely behave after a few of them. That is, oh God, Church Key back in the day. What's his name from Church Key? I'm blanking on it. I remember I was the best man for a friend's wedding, and I got some kegs So we didn't think we could do casks. I got some kegs for a stag, and I got a keg of 58 of Church Key and a 58 of Sergeant Major's IPA. And the brewer, the guy that owns Church Key, delivered them himself down to the Winking Judge, which then I loaded them into the back of my little Corolla SR5 coupe. Nearly broke the suspension on them with two 58-liter kegs in the back of that thing. And we had a fantastic, like we crushed the Sergeant Major's IPA, and then for the next week I had all my neighbors around on the back porch, and we drank the Church Key one, and that was also coincided with, remember that big blackout we had back in the late 90s?
Yeah,
like 3 a.m. Yeah, so that was at that same time. So we're sitting in the dark getting fucking hammered on the back porch with a keg that sat outside in the sun all day long.
I got a funny blackout story for after hours if you guys want it.
Oh yeah, but you're about 12, right?
It was in 2003. I was 19, so you know.
Was it 2003?
yes,
It was 03, yeah.
August, oh, it was. That's right, because my daughter was born in 2002. She was 10 months old. We were driving to go to Fortino's in Hamilton, and suddenly all the traffic lights went out.
I mean, I was 13, so you weren't far off.
You were 13, 12, right? 12.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
I'll put a pin in that for later, but if anyone thinks of it, I got a funny story.
What, you don't want it on the record?
Oh, I'll put it on the record. I just figured you didn't want to hear it until after, Bill.
Give
You rather
David
take it
something.
up.
It'll give David something to remove from this.
So, yeah, back then I was had just finished high school, getting ready to go into university. And I, was supposed to find a job. My dad was always on my case, find a job, you lazy ass. I just wanted to play video games. And so I'd go to the government odd jobs website, and I'd pick up like a day or two of work where I could, just because people would it's like the classifieds essentially. Sometimes it'd be landscaping, like help some lady move some rocks or, whatever. Mm-hmm. One day, these two exterminator brothers out of Saskatchewan, I don't know what the fuck they were doing in London, but they came to London where I live, or now I'm in Kitchener, but I grew up in London. And they needed someone. They got hired to clean out a church in Exeter, Ontario. The attic was full of bat shit because bats had been nesting in there. So they hired me and some other poor soul to climb up there on one of the hottest days of the year and just clean all the insulation and the bat shit out of this church attic. And, they gave us some form of PPE. We were generally pretty dressed up for it, but it was bloody hot. I mean, it was the day that crashed the power system.
Yeah.
And then they ended up finding out my dad was a contractor, so they brought him out for a day or two to do some other jobs around there. And on the drive home, the way I found out there was a blackout is my dad and I stopped to get some ice cream. And the variety store we went to, the power was out, so they were just giving it away. And we're like, what the hell's going on? And then we got home, and sure enough, our power's out too. So anyway,
that was a great story.
it was a filthy, smelly, shitty job. So don't clean bad shit out of an attic.
So what made you think that story needed to be after hours?
Because I figured Phil wanted to stay on his routine is all.
Stay on topic. I was just waiting for something really juicy, but okay. Yeah. Free ice cream.
There's no scandal there. I've got lots of scandal in my life, but not in that story. So.
Yeah, we had like the entire neighborhood over, like, and I lived just across from Mac, and so it was kind of a student area, but it was summertime, so there wasn't that many students around. We had like 5-6 doors down, everyone just out in the back deck, and everyone out milling about, pitchers everywhere, just hand pumping, with those stupid little pony pumps, the beer. I'm like, we need to drink it, it's gonna go off. But we kept drinking it for like 5 days. it was pretty rank toward the end, but it was free beer.
Well, back then, the other thing I remember about it is like phones used to work back then, right? You didn't need power for your phone.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah. I don't know what the
down, but you could still
telecom
call your
system.
brother and come on over for a beer, you know?
Well, and in that same house we had in Hamilton, I was redoing some of the wiring, and then the last project was to wire up the whole house with Cat 5, which you would never do now, and have all those plugs all over the place for, you know, a fully wired up house. And I had wired everything up, and I was tapping into the Bell phone line, and I'm like, I just hope no one calls right now. And I'm taking everything off, and who calls? My fucking mother-in-law. Like, it only puts power through it when someone calls, and it hurts. It's not that much, but it hurts. Wasn't happy at all. But hey, we got another beer to get through, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yes. So hang on, let me get this one done. All right. Charcoal Porter, unsexy name. I originally brewed it for the as a collab with the Charcoal Group, hence the name. I thought, oh, maybe they can sell a lot of that, and I can make some money. So we did it. This beer. Anyone ever have any Meantime Brewing beers out of Greenwich, outside of London? They would be sold in Britain in 750 ml bottles, which is rather inconvenient. But it worked. They had an IPA, which is really nice. And they also had a porter. And the porter was a London style porter. And, you know, it's clean, crisp, and dry, as any porter should be, clean, crisp, and dry. And so when like the Charcoal Group wanted me to do a beer for them, and they said, well, we'd like to do a porter. Okay, so I, from memory, recreated what I remember the Meantime porter to taste like, and we did a pilot batch, and I liked it. Like I got it right. And then we did a big batch, and it was excellent, and they loved it. And it was the first beer that I ever entered into any brewing competitions here in Ontario. And we got silver in Ontario in 2015, and then we put it into the Canadian Brewing Awards, and we ended up winning gold in 2015 in Canada. And this beer, so after winning gold in Canada, we that Monday after I got back, I think the Brewing Awards were in Niagara Falls. The Monday I got back, the New Brunswick LCBO, the ANBL, said, we want a pallet. We're sending a truck out to pick it up. We're doing that for any gold medal winners across the country. We want it. Okay, great. No problem. We'll get it to you. The LCBO had just issued a product call asking for stouts and porters for the autumn. So I called them up and I said, well, I silver medal in Ontario, gold in Canada. You guys interested? No, we don't want to. Like, it's officially the best porter in the country, and you don't want this? No. So the ANBL wanted a pallet of it. No, we don't want it. I was just absolutely raging. Hung up the phone. Literally 2 seconds later, it rang, and it was my well, actually, not even my MPP, Kitchener South MPP or Kitchener MPP, Diane called. She's like, can we do a photo op at the brewery for like Ontario Craft Beer Week? I'm like, when are you thinking? She's like, this afternoon. I'm like, yes, you can. And I bent her ear, and she was shocked and appalled at what the LCBO had done. So she won't say if she did anything, but the LCBO played nicey afterwards. So that's how I got my first beer into the LCBO. I had to go through a fucking MPP for a gold medal winning beer in the country. And this is who controls what you drink. I wasn't going to do an LCBO rant, but there, it's over. So beer, porter. So the style of porter is a very much 19th century porter. And the name comes from the porters that would run shit around London in the 19th century. And so they would stop into the pubs for refreshment. And this was like really water for them. And so it was meant to be relatively light, like relatively low in alcohol, clean, crisp, and dry to be refreshing. And also it was dark to hide any shit floating in it because their water wasn't the best. And nor was probably their serving technique in the place these guys would be hanging out. So this one, I actually really like it. Like wintertime, this is what I drink. Like fruit cake, damson fruits, chocolate, coffee, on the nose. A little bit of roasty character in there. Then you get into the taste. And it's much of the same. Some like fruitcake, damson in the middle, sort of a cervic roast at the front and the back end, and a whole bunch of dark chocolate and coffee. It's a fantastic beer to cook with, both sweet and savory, and it's quite up there on our best sellers. And it's won me a number of awards. I'm quite lucky to have hit it right off the bat. I won't say it was skill; it was luck. But the strange thing is, probably heard of Clifford Brewing out of Hamilton. Brad Clifford, a friend of mine, he had started contracting with me at the time, and the first thing we had done was his porter. And so a couple weeks later, when Beer Town and the Charcoal Group had asked me it asked me to make a porter for them. So I'm like, well, shit, like I know Brad's recipe, I can't copy it. So I had to come up with something completely different than what he did. And then I sent it off to him. I said, Brad, somebody wants me to make this for them. Is this substantially different from your porter enough that you're happy with it? And he's like, oh, this is totally different. And any year we enter competitions, we're either one or two and one. Like we always alternate. Like they're the exact opposite porters. The exact opposite porters. I'm more roasty, chocolatey, where he's more like caramelly. So, and I like there's only so many ways to make a porter, but apparently we found the greatest distance of different ways to make a porter, which is quite lucky. I mean, like sometimes you like. I'm not saying I'm God's gift to brewing. I'm not, but sometimes you get lucky, and then okay, I got lucky. Use the science to figure out why I got lucky, and then I can use that for something else. And that's really how I operate. And I don't know why I can formulate a recipe. I just think it's there. I can't explain it. I do. And then okay, if that worked, okay, let's use the science for other things. Still a science. I'm still a scientist. Just get to drink my experiments now. It's not a bad thing. As the Scots say, slangeva. Hey, that's not one of my beers there, Derek.
We've been doing a reno all week. I didn't get a chance to prepare. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I kind of
shame.
wish I was drinking your beers because they look awesome. I've had a few of them in the past. Been quite good, but it's a good looking lineup tonight.
It's a different lineup for
Yeah.
somebody that started out as a IPA guy. I'm giving you the exact opposite. And I think they're pretty decent. But of course,
Yeah.
I'm going to say that.
So, apologies for not having yours, but just didn't
That's
have
it.
time.
You know what? I'm done. I'm done with you. You come in, you're paying double.
That's a good idea. You should do that to them.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't let me in. Bill would have warned you, I think. But
Oh, don't worry. The sniper will take care.
Zoom has told me I'm not allowed to have a red card sing on the side, so you're in luck, Derek.
I told you, Bill. Put it on the wall behind you when you take Jackie's painting down. Put your red cardboard up. Trying to make it easier for you, buddy.
Or put it on the back of the painting.
Yeah, just turn it around. That's easier.
You have no idea what you're saying there.
It's a two-sided painting. That's what everyone wants.
Yeah, right.
He probably sells those.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for taking time tonight and to share your story with us. And
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you back on the show. So thank you, Steve.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you guys for listening and putting up with me. Appreciate it. And thank you very much for moving in night. And again, I apologize for that, but became very evident pretty quickly